the wide variety of technology has a massive place to play in all of this. This is just the start of the journey for a lot of you, I'm hoping. You will all have made that transition from on-site to off-site learning, and you'll be looking for ideas and ways to move forward over the next few weeks and months. As I said, this is only the start of the journey, hopefully, between ourselves and your schools or colleges. And I think the thing I need to flag up at this point is that we are also a demonstrator school now, and you may well have seen the announcements from the DFE and the government over the past few weeks. This is something we're doing alongside the DFE and obviously Microsoft's involvement as well. And the idea behind the Demonstrator School programme is to support teaching and learning and other schools and colleges in the use of technology, particularly now focused on remote learning. In terms of getting support from ourselves as a Microsoft Training Academy, ordinarily I would say that you come directly back to us and we will have the conversation, and we will then support you in whatever way possible in your future steps. As things have moved a little bit and we're in quite unique times, what I would say is that I would prefer, at the moment, by all means, you can message Lee or myself back and all the contacts will be shared later. But what I would appreciate is that you went to this website, which is the EdTech Demonstrator website. And at the bottom, it's not the best website at the moment. They're actually redesigning it as we speak. But at the bottom, I put a red box around this form. If you require any support for your school or college at this point in time, at whatever level, could you complete that form at an opportune moment in the future? And that's all collated centrally by London Grid for Learning, who are acting as the main partner with the DFE. And that way then you'll be able to get the support you require, whether it's from ourselves, who are primarily serving the Northwest, or another demonstrator school across the country. But you can also note in there that you've already started to have an initial input from us via a webinar, and that you would like to continue the work with us. So that just allows us to more readily support you in the time when I think the demand on what we offer is going to be a lot greater than it normally is. So at that stage, you've heard from me enough. I'm going to hand over to Lee Small initially, who's our 21st Century Tech Lead and Head of Computer Science at Ribblesdale. And he's going to take you through a brief overview of what we've done so far. But I think the things you'll be wanting to really listen to is how he and Louise Jeeves, our English teacher, have actually supported their classes remotely using the technology. So I'll hand over to Lee now, and I hope you have an interesting webinar for the remainder. Thank you very much.
Hello everybody, and first of all I'd just like to thank you for attending today's session. I must say that we've had quite an overwhelming response, and that's very much appreciated, and we really do hope that we can support yourselves today. So before we start, I'm just going to give you a small overview, basically a school context of Ribblesdale High School. So we're a local authority state school, and we are from 11 till 16, so years 7 till 11. We've got a very mixed cohort of about 1,300 students from a vast variety of mixed backgrounds, and we are on the fortunate position where over 1,000 of our pupils do have a Windows 10 device. Now that is a one-to-one device that they bring to school and also take home as well. Now obviously we are aware that we're in that fortunate position, but everything that we are shown today will be able to be taken home and basically be used in your own establishments as well. So basically, just to give you a bit of an overview of what this webinar is about. So we're going to give you a brief outline of what Ribblesdale have done to prepare for the current circumstances and situation that we are in. And then we're going to actually give you a live demonstration of how to use some of the software that most of you will actually already have available. And from the questionnaire that I sent out, it was an overwhelming response that a lot of people wanted a demonstration for Microsoft Teams. So I will take the time to go through from the basics to the more advanced features on Microsoft Teams, and hopefully you will all be able to take away something very useful that you'll be able to use. So first of all, how did we start, obviously, with COVID-19? What actually happened within Ribblesdale? Well, the first thing that we needed to consider was basically mobilisation. We needed to prepare to ensure that we were ready for if schools were to close, which we obviously are aware that this happened. And we were, as a school, very we knew that it was going to be a very important part that EdTech was going to play to ensure that we not only planned the process correctly, but also we ensured that school could run as normal as possible. So what we actually have is, at this moment in time, we wanted to make sure that school was maintained and normal running as much as possible. So we were looking at how we could use Office 365 to support that remote learning. So for example, Microsoft Teams, which we're going to have a little look at today, and more of the probably features that some people aren't quite aware of, the likes of learning tools. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that staff were ready and had actually been trained to use all of these systems. Now, we were in a very fortunate position within Ribblesdale, as we use these software throughout our normal day-to-day teaching. So within computer science, within other subjects around school, within English, we do use the Office 365 platform. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to make sure that staff were ready for any incidences or any circumstances in case the school did have to close. So what we actually did is we ran a couple of virtual meetings within school on the platform that we're currently using, which is Microsoft Teams. And that was to just make sure that staff were ready. They knew how to access the team. They knew how to be able to be involved in one of these meetings. I must admit, the first time we ran it, I was running around school to make sure that staff were all comfortable with it, and it was that easy to use that staff were able to log onto the system, and we're very, very happy on how to do that. Now, another important thing we needed to make sure is that all of our devices, pupils and staff devices, were ready to be able to use within a home environment. Now, we use something called, our ICT support team used something called Intune. And what Intune did is it allowed us to set up all of our devices that we actually had within school, and even repurpose devices that we needed to basically lend out to our pupils to ensure that they had a device at home that they could use when they were accessing our materials. And Intune just made it extremely easy for us to do that. Now, one of the main important things, well, the most important thing for a school is to ensure that safeguarding continues, and also off-site. And I suppose that can be quite difficult when you start to introduce technology. However, with the use of Intune, we were able to basically ensure that we were in control of what pupils could access, what pupils were able to be able to view with on those computers, and to ensure that as a school we were very confident that we had the different safeguarding procedures in place to support pupils, staff and parents. Now, probably the most important part of the whole of this thing to make this work was our staff. And we basically needed our staff to feel comfortable about using this software, but also ensure that they were given the correct as well as feeling supported. They needed to have the skills to be able to access the software. So what we wanted to do is we've trained staff over a period of time to ensure that they were very comfortable with using all of this Office 365 platform. And when we actually the school closed, we were very quickly in our planning, and we needed to make sure that staff were aware of the different expectations that they had. So, for example, one of the big questions is how much work do we need to set? When do we need to set that? And it's very important that as a school, we think about the balance. All staff and pupils are obviously also affected differently by COVID-19, and this is going to be in their own homes as well. So what we needed to make sure is that staff were able to access the support as well, but also be able to give the required learning materials to pupils within their own environments at home as well, and that the pastoral support was there for our pupils and our staff. So we basically we needed to make sure that all staff basically had a plan, and that plan was to stick to their timetables and to set work to pupils on the morning that they would teach that class. So if you teach a class for 1 hour a week, as a member of staff, you'd be expected to set half an hour of work to ensure that that pupil could, or your class were able to access that work. And that was through various different methods, for example, looking at, which we will look at in the live demonstration. And one of the things that we wanted to ensure is that that balance was met. Staff were able to look after their families, they were able to support their pupils, but also be able to have a bit of normality, as much as that could be within these times. Now, one of the things that we did use is that Teams was going to be this foundation. So Teams was going to be how we communicated, how we set the work for our pupils, and that was very, very important. It's our digital hub where everything goes on at this moment in time. We connect to pupils, we connect to staff, and we hold our staff meetings on there, and currently we are still continually to go through our CPD program, making sure that all staff are basically feeling supported, but also having that human element as well. And just quite an important thing is less is more. Basically ensuring that pupils are not feeling overwhelmed as well as staff. It's a difficult time for us all. We've all been affected, and we just wanted to make sure that staff also at this time felt like that they were supported within our school environment. Okay, also really big important part that which we had to look at was at parents. Now, most of us will still communicate to parents in the same way that this image will show at this moment, probably in a drama complex or a sports hall somewhere where all parents are listening to a presentation of some sorts. Well, the first thing is we were very well aware that that wasn't going to be able to happen. And the most important thing is simply communication, communication, and communication as it's written there. We needed to be able to communicate to parents what our vision was. We needed them to be aware of how the work was going to be set, how pupils access that work, and how they could get the support if they needed that support. And we did this through various methods of using our different apps and communication tools that we actually have, and that was very, very important. Now, one of the things that was also quite important was that ensuring that pupils were still able to access that pastoral support. Obviously, with things going on at the moment, different pupils are still affected in different ways, and we've got our more vulnerable pupils out there that we wanted to make sure knew that they still could communicate to the school and our pastoral leaders. We do that through basically through form periods where the form tutor will log on once or twice a week and just start a conversation with our pupils in terms of a live meeting where they will have a meeting like this where pupils can cooperate and speak to each other, but also to have that human interaction, which is extremely important. And then we move on to parents. How do they get help if they need help? Okay, so the first thing we did is, as a school, we've got to be open for our key workers. So before we closed, we actually sent out a Microsoft form, and we gave all parents a very quick questionnaire to try and get an idea of how many parents would want to be able to access us as a school to have their pupils in during that time, because we need to obviously be aware that some parents who are those key workers, they are going to need the school's time and resources to be able to support them into doing that job. And creating that Microsoft form was very quick, very easy to do. and we were able to get instant feedback, very much like I sent out on that request. And from that, we were able to plan. As a school, we were able to ensure that we had the correct number of staff within school on the first day that the school opened, during the school closures. And we were able to ensure that that planning was correct and was suitable, to put the correct provisions in place. And also, how were they able to also access subject teachers if they needed to, and where they needed to go for technical support. We've got a different remote app where parents are able to communicate with our support team for any guidance that they are looking for. The next thing was our pupils. Now, pupils, obviously, various different challenges we've got to think about when it comes to pupils. There are a variety of different abilities with different, regarding learning materials, but also actually using and accessing the edtech that we actually have. And a lot of pupils, we needed to make sure that they were feeling reassured that everything was in place. We needed to make sure that they could access everything that they wanted to. And we did that through a variety of different lessons, through computer science, just making sure that they felt comfortable using different software, and basically like a transition process where they get comfortable to using the technology that we currently use within our school. But also they needed to feel comfortable that their device was ready. And this is an extremely important thing, because as a school, you can't just give a pupil a device and expect it to have the software or the requirements on there for them to be able to do their work. So we used Intune, and our technicians were able to prepare those devices so they were able and ready for all our students to be able to complete the work that they were able to, that they would be getting over the next couple of weeks and for the foreseeable future. And basically what we needed to make sure is just how they got their support, how they were able to get their academic support from the teachers, were they able to speak to their pastoral, how those open lines of communication are there. And to be honest, we all use one platform, which is Teams. And I speaking to different colleagues, I see that, colleagues are using a variety of different sources. For example, Moodle, show my homework. Us as a school, we only use one, which is Microsoft Teams, as it does the same function as absolutely everything else. But once again, it means that we only need to inform parents, pupils, and staff on and train them on how to use this one device. And within Teams, which you will see a little bit later on in the webinar, is that pupils can actually provide their own peer-to-peer feedback and also get that feedback from staff very easily, very quickly. And it's also more than just learning. Pupils are also isolated from everyone else as well. They've got their friends, at the moment in time. A lot of pupils like the security of school. Coming to school, they have their friends within school, and it's just ensuring that they could have those open channels of communication to their friends, as well as their members of staff, making sure that they were safe. And one of the really big things is just to ensure that their own physical and mental well-being is being looked after as well. Now that is just the first part of the webinar, just for me to give you a little bit of just an overview really of kind of what we were looking at as a school. I'll just stop this now to see if there are any questions.
Yep, just to jump in there, Lee, if anybody's got any questions, if you could please post them in the chat of this webinar, and myself and Lee will be able to answer those as we go through the webinar. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no questions at this moment in time, okay, what we will do, there'll be several different parts. I do think that most members of the webinar will probably be interested in the live demonstration that we are going to do. But at this moment in time, I'm going to just introduce Louise. Now, Louise is our English teacher, but also an award-winning English teacher, where she uses EdTech to be able to support her English classes in some incidences where no exercise books are there whatsoever. So I'll let Louise take this on at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it looks like at Ribblesdale, so how we've implemented it in terms of our classes and what it kind of looks like for the children, and a few other different platforms that we can discuss on today's webinar. Thank you. Okay, so first things first, when we're looking at Microsoft Teams as a platform, some of the key features that are fantastic for use with pupils, with staff. The first one is the automatic syncing of the timetabled classes. So this pulls our information from Sims and it gets it all ready for us. So the classes are there. If the pupils swap and change, it moves them over. It does take a bit of time for them to sync, but then once it does that, it automatically moves everything with them, which is fantastic. It's familiar, easy to use interface, making the navigation really simple. It is quite, it's similar to things like Facebook or Instagram, LinkedIn, that type of thing. So pupils are familiar with those types of platforms. So when it comes to navigating around Teams, they tend to find that really, really easy. When you're looking at the activity feed, as you can see there is a little one at the side of it, thank you. And as you can see there, that just indicates that that is a notification specifically for you. And there's also the @ sign next to the team that also indicates that you have been tagged in a team, so that message is specifically for you, which obviously cuts out a lot of information. I know we tend to get inundated with a lot of emails that don't necessarily tend to be for yourself, and you spend a lot of time deleting ones and sifting through them, whereas with Teams there's no need for that. If a message is directly for you, you'll have a notification there and you'll be tagged in it, which is brilliant. And it's also a digital hub for connecting multiple platforms. So within the Teams channel, you can link different platforms within there. So if you were using Kahoot, GCC Pod, Quizlet, any kind of other platforms, Doddle or anything like that, you can add them as tabs at the top of each team, which allows everything to be in one place and you don't have to bounce around through different browsers. Okay, so looking a bit more deeply into Teams itself then, the tool to enhance success. And if you have a look at the picture that's on there, that's looking at a team, and you can see the different things that are available for you. So the first one is the conversations. We are going to demonstrate this later on as well. The conversations allow you to tag pupils, speak to pupils directly, and also give whole class notifications, which are just really quick and easy. In terms of sharing files, you have the files tab at the top of the team, and within there we have a folder called class materials. Now class materials, if you add to that, allows there to be a master copy, if you will. So when pupils are accessing that work, they have to download it and save it in their raw area before they then edit it. So it's a great way to have those master copies. You don't have to worry about it being overwritten or anything like that. It's all there in one place. A great physical way of doing it is producing praise. So with pupils, you can tag certain pupils in there to receive praise. You can select it for teamwork, leadership, just for being awesome. So there's a lot of different reasons to give praise, and you can tag the pupils, and it just gives them that recognition in that team for them to keep going. There's the Meet Now function, which is great. You can schedule, you can just click a Meet Now, and that will put a meeting up within that team straight away. So for example, if you have a class and you might have several pupils asking the same question, you might just click Meet Now, and straight away those pupils can join that call and you can address those misconceptions quite easily. On the back of that, you can also schedule events. So, for example, if you're wanting to talk to a class, say Monday morning, you're going to introduce something and you would schedule an event for them to join, pretty much like we have done today, and the pupils would join and you can deliver that content in a scheduled manner that would be in their calendar as well. So it's really easy for them to find and join. Okay, so based off what Lee has previously mentioned, he mentioned about keeping the human element, having that interaction with their peers, and also looking after that physical and mental well-being, which is so important. So for us, using Microsoft Teams has been a great way to develop that school community, especially with the constraints of the current situation. We've still been able to communicate with our pupils on a daily basis. They've been able to interact with each other. So I think we've really benefited from using this platform. It allows the flexibility with the demands of daily life. Now, myself, I haven't got any children, but I can imagine people out there who have got 1, 2, 3 children, young, or the homeschooling or any other kind of demands of daily life that they're having to deal with at the same time in this situation. Teams is quite flexible in terms of being able to adapt to that. You can have it on your phone, you can have it on a desktop, so you can kind of communicate with people as and when. Again, communicating through various methods I've just mentioned, and you can access it from a variety of different platforms. So again, I do have it on my phone, so if I'm not at my computer, if I'm doing something, I can still keep in touch with those messages that are essential if pupils are needing my help. Okay, so live lessons then. This has been something that myself and several other members of staff at Ribblesdale have accessed and trialled and have worked really, really well. We've had some fantastic feedback. So for live lessons, it's great just for checking in with pupils. So on some days I might just do a live lesson, and it is just an opportunity for the pupils just to join, just for me to check in, see if they're okay, how they're getting on with the work. And that is great for form groups as well, checking in with our form groups, making sure they've no struggles going on elsewhere within school that they need some support with. Again, answering questions, you can do that verbally, and pupils like to hear our voice. A couple of times I've gone on a call without my video on, and they say to me, "Miss, why can't I see you?" And I'm like, "Oh, sorry," and I'll put the video on. They just like that interaction, so this is great for being able to do that. Again, ensuring that well-being, it's not just about live lessons, delivering content in terms of, getting them to write something or questioning them or anything like that. Sometimes I'll do a live lesson and we'll just do a quiz. It'll be topical, but there will be a couple of questions thrown in there on sport or flags or whatever it may be, just to build up their spirit a little bit. And the amount of times pupils will mention afterwards that they really enjoyed it and they say thank you, and it just develops that ethos of support, of supporting one another. In terms of sharing screens is fantastic. So not only can I share my screen with some pupils for anything that they want to do, the pupils can also share their own screens if they're wanting to show the work that they've been doing or offer any support there. Okay, so in terms of tracking engagement then, this is just one way that we do this at Ribblesdale. So it's in terms of assignments. So when you set an assignment for a pupil, and this will be demonstrated in our live demonstration later on, you can distribute several resources following that timetabled lesson. You can use the announcements to grab attention, so you can tag certain pupils. You can request their interaction on posts, so you can direct them to this. And you can also use it to track their engagement. And as you can see from that image there, I can see which pupils have turned it in, which means they've completed it, they've actually viewed it, or if it says not turned in, like the one highlighted down the bottom there, that means that they've not even viewed the assignment. So I know that I need to check in with that pupil, make sure they're okay, make sure they're not struggling to access it, and if they are, what can I do to help them? Okay, so these are just a couple of other different strategies that we use at Ribblesdale. So the first one is Flipgrid, and I'm not going to go into massive amounts of detail with these. If you do have any other questions about these, please pop them in the chat, or myself and Lee will be around afterwards to ask any questions about these individually. But they are great for allowing pupils to access content in different ways, just to spice up that diet a little bit and just to give them a different way of accessing material. So these are likes of Flipgrid and Minecraft, OneNote, which works really well, LBQ, GCSE Pods, SoundCloud, and also Forms as well. And Forms integrates with Microsoft Teams fantastically in the sense that I use that to take a register every morning with my form group. I post a form like a poll and they tell me if they're present or not, and that's just a really quick and easy way, and I can see then who's not registered for several days, and at that point then I know it's important for me to intervene to make sure there's any problems from a safeguarding perspective. Thank you. Okay, so I've just gathered a bit of feedback in terms of pupil responses and how they think remote learning is going, and as you can see they are overwhelmingly positive. We've got the fact they think it's amazing, it's a great experience for young people and for adults. I think that's because parents are also getting involved quite heavily with technology and getting used to it as well, maybe with their own organisations and with their children. I like to video call my teachers, it's great to see them, really simple and easy. And a great tip from one pupil was that I always write down my lessons for that day, so she's still writing them down but she's just staying on track and she finds it really, really easy. So that was lovely to receive such feedback. And then finally is just the staff responses. As you can see from the images, we are all dealing with a variety of different things as well as producing and providing work and support for pupils. We've also got our own commitments at home. So it's been quite a challenging time, and I think people have really adapted to it so well, using more resources online, calling classes through Teams, making the pupils more independent, which is a great result of this, I think. In terms of Microsoft Form and quizzes, they mark themselves, so we're reducing our workload, and also you can provide feedback quite quickly and easily. and voice messages to respond into form groups. You can do that through videos on OneNote, or you can just record your voice and send it, or through other platforms. But it's just really lovely to be able to give them that one-to-one interaction. Thank you. Let's have a look, see if we've got any questions. So the question for Paul.
Okay, I don't think at the moment. I think Paul's actually had to go off at this moment in time. So just looking for the best skill up staff, looking for best way to upskill staff remotely. Okay, now what we do have is within Ribblesdale, we use something called the Microsoft Educator Center. And that is something that we will show you and share with you later on. And that is something that we've used to provide CPD for staff. Any piece of software that you use within the Office 365 platform can be accessed via this centre, and that is just to us as a school has been absolutely invaluable, and we will share that with you at the end of the session. And what we do is we then send this information out for staff to be able to upskill them. Could you tell us how your tutor form sessions work? Okay, yes, so at this moment in time, what we do is 2 times a week, we have the tutors log on. Okay, so as a teacher, we are expected to currently be on from 9 o'clock in the morning from 9:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we have the ability to be able to answer pupils' questions, set work, and then after that time, that is time then for making sure that us as teachers are have a good well-being, and basically we can also look after our family as well. So what we do is during that time there is a session where a teacher will be live available for pupils to respond to, either through a live session like this or also through text-based as well. Okay, our IT staff believe that using any off-site device that isn't networked is potentially safeguard an issue in terms of student staff communication. What are your SLT stance on that? The first thing is obviously bringing in technology can create more issues, but I would once again come back to the fact that it is about planning and preparation. As a school, before we actually brought one-to-one devices to our pupils, we made sure that we had the infrastructure all set out, everything was right. And then by using Intune, we are able to ensure that we have control over what our pupils can access. And we have software on our computers that will actually highlight the most, the really serious concerns when it comes to safeguarding, and will actually also inform tutors, not form tutors, but the pastoral teams when we need to communicate. Now, obviously, I would say that there are more, there are different things to think about, but that is nothing that your policies and your procedures and everything should be able to address. With Ribblesdale, we're quite keen on thinking that we need to be able to educate our pupils on how to use these devices in the correct way, and that's what we do all the way throughout school. Can you explain the voice notes you just mentioned a little bit more? Is this saved and able to be replayed? Okay, yes, the voice note is replayed. Okay, that is something which I will actually demonstrate at the moment, and I will demonstrate that in my live demonstration. So I will come back onto this one. Thank you, John. And next one, how do you pull your class list from Sims to 365? Do you use the Sims IDs? Okay, so to be honest, we use a company called Salamander. And what Salamander do is they create every single one of our groups for us. So as a school, we have all of our email addresses, which is all brought in from Sims. So we have all of our groups done. A teacher does not need to do anything from this. Salamander as a company do this for us. And I think it is probably the best £500-600 a year. So as in terms of schools that we are actually spending, because that ensures that everything and all of our classes and all of our groups are actually there, and a very, very, it's such an important part. Okay. Now, okay, what I'll do now is I'll probably come on to the live demonstration part now, which I think is the part that most of us are probably looking for, because it was quite overwhelming in terms of trying to use Teams. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my my screen with yourselves. And I'm actually going to do this as a live demo. So basically looking at hints and tips on how to use Teams, but also looking at how you can get the best out from your class. Now please remember, this is how we use it, or how I use it. It doesn't generally mean that it's the best for yourself, but what it might do is it might be able to give you some different ideas on how Teams works. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do, as you can see, this is live for me, so I just want everybody to be aware of that. So obviously under the GDPR, I need to make sure that I am clicking on the correct classes and things like that. Okay, so the first thing is, this is our Teams view. Now this is every single one of my classes, and as you can see, there's quite a lot there, and at this moment in time they are all pre-populated for me. They are pre-populated, they are there, so I do not need to add pupils in. What a great function is, because we use this company called Salamander. If a pupil moves classes because of a timetable change, that happens automatically within my class too. So as a teacher, you do not need to do anything. Everything is set up automatically. You log into Teams and straight away all of that is already set up as it should look. Now, the first thing I just want to introduce you to is something on Teams a lot of people aren't aware of, is obviously up here at the top we have this search bar. Now, I'm very, very used to using shortcuts on Teams. So if you use the / and you type in keys, okay, you will actually see a list of the shortcuts that Teams can offer for you. Now, I'm so used to using Control and C to copy, Control and V to paste. And obviously within time, okay, you will be able to use these different bits and pieces that all of these different shortcuts you will be able to access as well, and maybe over time you'll be able to get a bit more quicker and more fluent with that. Okay, the next thing is obviously one thing. Some of you might be looking at this and thinking, well, actually my Teams looks nothing like this. Okay, so the first thing is how to actually, once you're on Teams, there's two different types of views. So up here, I'll show you the other view which you might be used to. So if I switch the views, okay, your team view might be switched to this list view, which this probably might look a little bit more like yourself view, okay, with all of your teams here. Now that's something that you might be more comfortable with. Myself, I'm very comfortable with looking at the tile view, so I'm just going to come back onto down here at the bottom. I'm just going to switch my view, and just because basically it's a bit easier for me to manage myself, and I can see those classes there, and I think that's quite a nice simple thing to be able to do. Okay, so now more importantly, how do we start using it in the correct way? Okay, so I'm going to go right down to the bottom. And what I have here is I have a webinar, so I'm just going to click onto this team. Now this is a team that we're using just for the webinars, so I just basically it's blank apart from one thing that I've currently set up, which is just to show you how this can be used. So the first thing that you'll notice is when you click onto a team, all icons are basically very boring, and when you click on it as a pupil, you'll just see a lot of icons, and for a pupil it can be quite overwhelming. So they use that dual coding approach where you can actually select on the image or select on your icon, and you can select a more appropriate image for that class, and then when you press update, that image will not just appear for you, but it will appear for your class as well. So if you're a music class, obviously a more appropriate image might be able for them to be able to find your class more effectively. And as you can see when you're looking through here, I haven't done it for everyone, okay, but as you can see, it allows for a little bit easier to find. Okay, now the next thing is when you first create a team, okay, you will basically be given a general channel. Okay, now a team is obviously a group of people that you want to be able to connect, but within that group of people you might be able to, or you might want to separate how these different people communicate. For example, within a computer science team, I have Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, I have a Wellbeing channel, and these different channels are basically like your subfolders where conversations go within this subfolder. or within this channel. So just to show you how to quickly set these up, okay, we simply click the more options. Whenever you're unsure on Teams, clicking these three little dots is brilliant, because we can click on these three little dots and it gives us so much more. And I can just simply add a channel. And then all I might want to do, okay, as this is a webinar, I might simply say that this is going to be where I post all of my Key Stage 4 work. I know different subjects obviously set it up as different units of work or different channels, but it really depends on how you choose to do that yourself. So I'm simply just going to press Key Stage 4, and then you can add, and that is as simple as it is. The other thing that you can do is you can change it from a standard into a private channel. Now what that private channel does is you can decide who sees that channel. So for example, in certain circumstances, you might want a team where you have pupils and staff collaborating together. So I have a staff only channel where staff communicate, where pupils are not able to see that. So just to show you how they look very quickly, so I'll do Key Stage 3, I will add, and all that will happen is that channel will go straight in. When I add a private channel, okay, I simply add the channel and I'll just call this Key Stage 3, and I'll just private channel, and then it will simply go on to access rights. Who would you like to be in there? Okay, so once again, I can give them student rights or I can give them teacher rights. That is obviously depending on who yourself. So in this case, I will just go to Louise, and I'll add Louise, and then what will happen is you will see that this is locked, and that means even though it's locked, it will not show for the people who have not been invited. It will only show with that lock sign for people who are. Okay, so the next one is composing messages. So obviously one of the things that we do is we need to communicate to our pupils on how to set them work. So how do we actually set our pupils work? So this is actually an example from one of my pieces of work that I've set. So this is week 2, microbit game, and it basically gives all of their information that they need there with the links that they need. Okay, now what I'm going to do is this creates a little bit of an issue when we do it like this. Okay, so this is why I wanted to explain it to yourselves. Okay, whenever you insert documents here, what it will do is up here in the files at the very top, it will give you a class materials, but then it will give you the document that you've actually also inserted here. Now the problem is if you insert a document that isn't inside this class materials, it becomes an editable document for everybody currently on it. So that means that everybody in your class can currently edit that document. So if you could imagine 30 students around one piece of paper trying to edit it, so you need to make sure that when you're inserting documents onto the posts channel, that we're doing it within the right way. Otherwise you will get one student who's really keen, gets on at 9 o'clock and completes the worksheet for everybody within that class, which can cause a little bit of a problem. So the way that we would do it, okay, so I'm going to show you 2 ways on this is done. So at the very bottom, let me just leave this up here, the very bottom we have a compose button here. Now most of us will probably be so used to writing, and then we press enter, and what it does is all we were doing was trying to give it a line break, but instead of that line break I simply posted the word hello. Instead of that, we simply press the format tool, and what it does is it gives us so many different options. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I would set a piece of work. Okay, so the first thing I would do is I would decide on whether or not I wanted this to be an important message. So you have tons and tons of different formatting tools up here. So obviously important message, okay, you might want to add links, you might want to quote. This is your standard box when it comes to sort of web development or inserting anything online, so you should be quite familiar with that. Okay, but the things that you'd need to think of is if I want to notify the whole of my class, I would simply do @ and I would write team. And what that does is that will actually allow me to send a direct message, which will give a notification like this in the top left hand corner of how that appears. So I can do RHS webinar, and that will give every single one of those pupils a piece of work, or it will notify them that work has been set. And then I would simply say, the way that I would set work is I would give them the message and simply say, you can access your work by clicking on assignments. Okay, and that's the way that I would actually do it. Okay, but whatever you post in here, as long as we're using this @ symbol, okay, will actually be viewed by everybody within that team, and it will give them that notification that pops up just like a message, and they will know that that is there for them, as it will be in their notifications. Okay, and you simply here put any information in there that you want. Now, just a couple of things, because they are quite important, is how to make it look more apparent, or how to make it look nice, and also how to make it benefit for the teacher. So up here at the top, okay, we have, as you can currently see, this is a new conversation. Now what I would do is I would turn it to an announcement, and by turning it to an announcement you get a nice big title, and I would simply set week 1, and then I would give the title of the task. And then within that you have, okay, different illustration tools over here. So I can press this illustration, I can add my own image as I've done above. I'll just show you that, or you can simply choose an illustration, and I can select these vast amounts, okay, of different images that are there, or you might have one that you would like yourself. And all that does is it brings the attention to that message, so the pupils can't say, oh, I couldn't find that message. Okay, that simply says week 1, title of the task, and it hits them there straight away with that notification, and it will send them directly to that message as well. And that's the announcement tool. But one thing that I think a lot of people forget about is you can write one message and you can send it to all of your different channels. So if I'm here and posting multiple channels, I can select this, and you'll see it says 2. I can select channels, and then what I can do here is, as you can see, as this is my live tenancy, you can see that I've got all of my classes there. Now, how does this benefit me? How do I use it? Well, what I would do is I would set my year 7 work on a Monday. So on a Monday, I'm quite fortunate. I have a year 7, 8, 9, 10 and 11. So what I do is on a Monday, I set the work for that class with the notification. Okay, as you can see, so I'll just send this now. Okay, so it would look like that, and I would set that work. Tuesday comes, I teach year 7 again. I simply press the 3 little dots, I edit the message, okay, and up here in post and multiple channels, I now add my next class, which means I don't have to rewrite that post. I write 4 posts a week, and I send it to all of my classes at the start of their day, so they are able to get that notification. And that is an extremely valuable tool. Saves the teacher time, and it also makes sure that you are consistent across the work that you're setting as well, so there's no variance in those messages as well. So that's a very nice handy tool to be able to use. Now, the only thing I would say about that, and this is why I'm not too keen on this type of message, is the fact that whenever you have an attachment, you are not allowed to send it to multiple channels. Okay, if you are using an announcement, or if you are using a conversation, unfortunately you cannot send that document across multiple channels. So my type of work is basically looking like this, where it gives them week 1, title of the task, and it basically says you can access your work by clicking on the assignments tab, and then I will show you that in the next kind of steps that we have a little look at. Okay, so that's basically the basics with looking at composing a message. The next one is probably looking at the different messaging options. One of the things that I find that a lot of people tend to do is they forget about, in Outlook, people use the flag system quite a lot, and what that will do is that will flag their email, and it tells them that it's important. People don't realize you can do that in Teams. Okay, and the way that we do it within Teams is any message that you find important, we simply press the 3 little dots on that message, and you can save this message. Now, by saving that message, what it does is it brings it up here under your initials, and when you click your initials, okay, you will be able to see that you have saved messages. Now I won't click on there, as I have obviously all of my current school and pupils saved messages on there, but what that will do is that will take you to an independent area where all of your saved messages are. Now the really good thing about this is when you click back on that message, it puts you into the thread, into the exact position, so you can get a whole view of the conversation that is currently or has been going on. So even if you're not allowed or able to pick it up at the moment, because obviously when you're reading emails, you just get the threads at the bottom, and it can be receiving 250 emails a day and absolutely nothing of them is about you, but you're still receiving them in your inbox. And by going to that save section there, you're just able to filter out the stuff that you want, and it takes you back into the conversation, and you don't get any notifications, because why get the notifications if it's nothing to do with you? So that's an extremely important part there that we're talking about when it comes to kind of those saving of messages, which is just there. Okay, so that's quite an important thing. Just two other little bits. I do obviously at the moment, I can't see any messages or anything going on, so I do know this might be a bit of a whirlwind at the moment. We are recording the session, so I will be able to send it out to everybody to be able to go over that. But please, if you do want to ask any questions, please write them in the questions tab in the chat, and I'll be able to answer them at the end of the session. Two other things that...
Could I just interrupt you there, if you don't mind?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, I don't know how many others are in this boat. I can't actually use the chat feature because it says the team owner hasn't made me a member.
Okay, so what that would mean, if a team owner hasn't made you a member, okay, it will be to do with the right. So with every single team, okay, and I'll show you a member of this here. So if we look at every single team and I go onto this manage team, it will have something to do with these settings here. Okay, so at this moment in time, you can see that the three, me, Paul and Louise, are all owners. Okay, now, sorry, are you not able to chat at the moment in the conversation? Is that what you meant? Sorry.
Yes, sorry, just the point where you said I can't see any messages coming through. I do have some questions, but I can't post them. Okay,
fantastic. Okay. Bear with me. I'm thinking this is our first live event that we've done in this way. So what I would ask is if you're not able to post any messages, we'll open up the microphones at the end, and I will certainly answer any questions that I possibly can. So obviously this is a learning curve for us as well. So once I will open it up at the end, and then please ask the questions if you're able to. I wasn't aware that you were not able to answer any questions. I do apologise for that on that chat, so we will sort that out. I think it's due to the fact that everybody's being used sending external emails. So I'll open up the chat at the end, and everybody will be able to ask the questions. Okay, so two more things. First of all is message extensions that we have at the bottom. Something which is really nice and really simple to use is this praise. So we can press praise, and it pops up and it says, who do you want to say praise to? I might simply say thank you, and I might say, okay, I want to send it to Showcase 01, and I can add the message, well done, and I can simply press preview and I can send. Now that is obviously giving pupils praise. It would look a little something like this, but it would allow pupils to give a little bit more praise on their it's given them a little bit more visual recognition. So if pupils have helped or supported each other, they're able to do that, because obviously when I send this message or this type of work that I've set, pupils comment on it, they ask me about it, they ask me questions about it, I give them feedback on it. But more than anything, I encourage pupils to feedback on the responses themselves. So as we can just see, Louise is very kindly, thank you, Mr. Small, I've worked really hard on that assignment. I can obviously respond, and I can say praise, there's the show, I've given them the praise, and I can say well done, and that's giving that student or that pupil a notification. I can also, one thing I do, if a pupil gives really good feedback, I simply give them a like, and what that does is that allows them, or because of how we've taught it, they know that I've given them a house point on our system, just because they provided constructive feedback. Okay, next one is message extensions. So at the bottom here, we've got all sorts. Okay, as you can see, I've got I've got search criteria news. You can get YouTube. Okay, you've got loads of different apps there. So if you as a teacher use something quite often, if you click on those message extensions there and simply search for the apps, there is absolutely loads in there which you might be able to find, and it just means that things are there so much quicker, so much easier for you to use. I know there are people who use Quizlet, Trello. There's an awful lot of things. I don't know half of them in there, but there is so much different bits of information that teachers can use and have at their disposal. That is certainly something that you should look at. Okay, and the next one, which I think this one's quite handy for, and I didn't actually realise this, I'm quite comfortable in using Teams, but right up in the top left hand corner there are navigation arrows, and it sounds silly, I've used it for 3 years and I've never known that they were there, but what they allow us to do is they allow me to just go back, so I can look at basically just like a web browser where you can go forward and back and you can get back to the page, because what can happen sometimes is you can click on your chat and you will lose the position that you are in within Teams. So by just using these navigation arrows, I can get quickly back to where I was, or I can go forward again, and that will give me some information there. And that's just a very nice, simple little way to be able to navigate, okay, especially when you're using your activity feed, because on that activity feed, you'll get all messages, you'll get responses, and obviously sometimes you can lose where you're actually working or where you write that message. Simply use those navigation buttons and you'll easily find where you want to be. Okay, so I can simply go forward and back, and that's a really nice little simple tool to use there. And another one, which as much as one thing that I really, at the moment I struggle to use emails, and the reason why I struggle to use emails is because I get around about 50 emails a day, and probably 2 or 3 of them which are from me. So the problem is that emails generally now are seen as less important by teachers, and the problem with that is sometimes we need to get important messages across. Okay, so I really prefer to use this type of platform because it notifies me when there's something for me, and then we can post things in channels anyway that don't have an @ symbol, which will just post it as normal and there will be no notification. But one of the things I do realize is that email is not going to go away, and it's something that we will still need to use. So what we might realize every now and again is that we have an important message that we want to send to an external person. So I can simply press the 3 little dots and every message can be sent automatically, okay, out as a email. So I can simply click on the 3 little dots, I can press send to Outlook, and what that will do is that will be able to send this message as an email. Okay, as you can see, like that, I can simply add on who I'd like that to go to, and that will send that message as an email to everybody that I want to actually have that access to. The only thing I would say there is you need to make sure that, okay, if there are any comments on that post that you've put on, so for example, if I use the one down here, which is here, if I want to send this one, okay, this will actually have the comments as well. So you need to make sure that if you ever do want to send a message as an email, okay, so you might have something that's been said on a Teams channel and you want to send it to parents, or you want to send it to a group or a channel or external, or whatever reason you might do, you just need to be aware that the message that you send will also contain the comments that members of staff have actually, or pupils have also placed on there. So that's something just to be wary of. And obviously we can do it the other way around. Sometimes we'll receive an email from a parent that we want to be within a team. Okay, so for example, our staff team, we've had a nice email from parents. We want all staff to send it, all staff to be able to view it. Instead of sending it as an email, we can send it as an email to a Teams channel. So every Teams channel, okay, if you click the 3 little dots on the channel that you want that to appear, every Teams channel has its own email address. So get the email link, and all we do is simply click it, and what happens is it pops up as an email address, okay, which is just there. We just copy that and we simply paste that into our Outlook, and all that will happen is the email will appear in the thread as a message, just like you can see there on front of you. So it's a nice, easy, nice, simple way to be able to, to me, we shouldn't be using two platforms to communicate. Why use email? Why use Teams? We should use in one platform and using that consistently. But we are going to be getting those external emails. Okay, so when we get those external emails, let's get them into Teams and let's keep people all in that one place in that digital hub. And that's allowing for that email connectivity as well, which is just there. Okay, just two other things that we need to look at, okay, within messaging, within a channel. It's the tabs up here at the top. Okay, so up here we've got different tabs. So we've got our posts, we've got our files. Now, when I was relating to this message, this post here, where I first posted a message, okay, and if you set some work like this, okay, what happens is if you attach a file, okay, and if you attach a file like that, it will automatically put it in the root of this files folder for the general tab. Okay, so that means everybody can change or adapt that. If you want it where nobody can adapt it, simply advice would be to put it within this class material. So I can simply just move, okay, this to the correct folder where I'd like it to, which is in class materials. You'll see that it's got the lock in, and that means that pupils or staff can't change or attach the file that you actually want. Okay. Once again, I do realize we are going quite quickly. I just want to get through as much as we can, and then I can open it up for any questions. And then we also have a tab up here, which is very handy. So if we click up here on this plus sign, we will probably see an awful lot of different apps that people are probably familiar with. Once again, I do not know them all. Okay, so I know Discovery Education is some things that people sign up to. We've got Wakelet, we've got Stack Overflow, which is something I use within computer science. There's so much in here that I actually am not aware of what everything does, but if you just hover over it, okay, probably not the best example then, but if you just hover over it, it will give you information about what it is, and then if you click on it, it'll give you a little bit more detail, and if that's something that you want, you can simply add that. And what happens is it will add it as a different view up here. So as an example, I might go add. I might say, okay, I would like a website, okay, and as a school we use a website called Doddle. I would just type in the URL here. I would just type in the name that I want to appear, and then I would just type in the URL or the web address here, okay, and it's not a valid one at the moment, so I would need to copy and paste it. I've not got that there at the moment. So just your web address there, you simply press save, and that will appear up here as a short click link. So people can just click it and they will basically automatically be able to access that website very, very quickly. And that's just something which can save people's time. It's about keeping them in one place. Although it's not the same website, as long as it appears to be the same, okay, it makes pupils feel an awful lot better and more comfortable with using it. So while I've been talking, I've just actually got a website. So if I just click on website, I just type in BBC and I paste in my link and I press save. Okay, what will happen is it will pop up here. So as you can see now at the moment, okay, I'm here on my channel. It's Inform Pupils. I've inserted a new tab. And then if they click here on BBC, it appears within the window for pupils, so they're able to use it as a normal website. Now, once again, as a pupil, they think they're in one place. Okay, if we want to get to a different website, or we actually want to go to that website, we can locate it with all of these different options we have up here. Okay, and that's just something which is really, really useful. Now, one of the best things that I would say at the moment that I found on this tab is this one, okay, which is Insight. Now, Insight, just to give you an idea, okay, I've already installed it, okay, so you press it and it appears like this. So what Insight does is this, because obviously one of the big questions is, how do you know which pupils are engaging within your content? Well, hopefully by me pressing Insight, for anybody currently looking at my screen, it should be extremely easy to be able to spot which pupils have actually accessed this. 4 out of 5 are not active. Okay, so we've got Showcase 2's not been on, Showcase 3's not been on, 4's not been on, 5 hasn't, 1 has, and if I hover over it, it tells me what they've done and what they've been on. Okay, so when we set pupils' work within school, we have to obviously say whether or not they've been engaging within our content. This is an extremely quick way, one way with a variety of different tools that we have that we can use to be able to see whether a pupil is actually accessing our content. Because if they, for example, if we've given them a week to do the work and they haven't accessed it, we simply know that they haven't engaged with that content. So that one at 4 Insights is an extremely great tab, but it will also give you average grades. Okay, once again, I will show you that when we look at the assignments part, and whether they've actually accessed them on time. Now, this is only recently just been released, so it's going to be developed quite quickly over the next couple of weeks. So please, if you are using Teams, have a little look at Insights. It's something that will save you an awful lot of time to see which pupils are accessing your resources and messages and actually using the channel. And that just means that as a teacher, for pastoral care, safeguarding care, I might know that looking at Showcase 2, he's a vulnerable pupil, or they've currently got issues at home. I might now be more inclined to pick up the phone and to actually have a conversation with that student or the parent over there to speak to them to see if everything's okay. And that's a way to be able to inform you as a teacher about that resource there. So that's really, really nice to have a little look at. Okay, so that's the basics that I've looked at this moment in time. I am just going to go on to a little bit more complicated at the moment now, which is the assignments. So one thing that you've got to remember is obviously setting work in this way means that pupils will get the work, okay, but then how do we know when they've done the work in terms of, apart from our insights, we can see that they've accessed it, but how do we mark it? How do we give them feedback? We can obviously give them feedback within the channel, but sometimes there might be that instance where that feedback is private. They don't want everybody to know, the teacher understands that. And that's where assignments is absolutely a fantastic tool. So just to show you how this assignments works. So if I click assignments, okay, what will happen is it will simply give me a page that looks like this, okay, and all I might want to say is, okay, I want to, what do you want to do? So I would like to create a new assignment, okay, and I'm going to press the assignment button. And most of us will probably use things like this, like Show My Homework or class charts or any type of homework distribution system that you currently use. But once again, I would say, why are we using multiple pieces of software when one piece of software can do it? Like at Ribblesdale, we use this for everything. We don't have Moodle, we don't have Show My Homework. Everything just uses one piece of software, and that just makes sure that we've got a consistent approach, but staff don't feel overwhelmed by continually having to retrain them to use continually different pieces of software. So all we would do here is title, okay, and you would give the students the instructions. So for example, I would simply give the instructions that pupils needed here. Okay, and then we can simply add some resources if we would like to there, so any attachments that you might want. Okay, now the difference between this is when I attach a resource here, that is specifically for that student, so they can make an edit to that document, they can do whatever they want to that document, and it doesn't affect it for any other students. Okay, but one of the really good things is this Rubik's. Okay, so I can simply add a Rubik's. Now a Rubik's, is it Rubik's or Rubik? Okay, so I've set one up as an example. So if I want to add one, I can simply click it. I can simply say next, and this is just an example of one that we've got for technology. So within technology they have coursework, so development of design process, okay, and for example I want to grade them excellent, good, fair, point. I can choose on the different point systems, and I can decide to use this rubrics if I want to. Now all that does is makes my job for feedback a lot easier, because when I'm marking that student's work, I just click the one that they've met and it feeds back to the student straight away. And I'll show you how that works in a little bit. And all I can do is attach, and what that'll do, Okay, and then it's just a similar sort of thing, so we can sort of give our date due, okay, when we expect to have that. The only other thing I would say is the advantage of using assignments is I can specifically give it to certain students within the class. So if I set an assignment at the moment, I know that I've got mixed ability classes where some students will struggle to complete the work that I'm setting, so I can I can give them that work without anybody else knowing, and that's just quite nice, and for me to give them that assignment. So I can just select which students I want to have, and then when you come off it just says 3 students, and I simply attach. And what that will do, so I will simply just show you how that works. It takes a little moment, but once it's done, it basically take a little moment, but what it will do is it will post here in the chat for students, and it will also give them a notification. So now when you see this sort of week 1 title, you can access your work by clicking on the assignments tab. Pupils are aware that they've got that. Okay, another thing which is super important with these assignments is why create one when I've already done it. Okay, so I can simply reuse my assignments time and time again. So if I click create, I know, for example, I've got from existing assignments. I'll go to one of my actual classes. Okay, so let's say, for example, I go to my Year 7U class. I click next. I can see all the assignments that I've currently set for them. And now I might say, okay, I want this week 1 Lightbot, and I'm going to press next. And it gives me exactly the same information. I don't have to write the instructions. I don't have to add an attachment. Everything's all there, all the students, everything else. It tells me where do I want to assign it. So I want to assign it in the RHS webinars. It takes a little moment, okay, because it's just got to prepare your worksheet. But once that's happened, we can simply press assign, and that will do everything else. It will send that document to everybody. I'll just give that a moment, and if Louise is listening, if Louise could just, while I speak about the next section, if Louise could just complete 1 or 2 bits of that worksheet under the students tab, I'll be able to demonstrate to you how it looks. Okay, so you'll be able to see the advantage of doing that. So just if I go back to that team, sorry, I've pressed the, I can use my backup now. Actually, if I go back, come to the bottom, okay, you can see that there's the first assignment, okay, which is the Lightbot, and I'll just let Louise do a little bit of work on that at the moment, just before I show you how that looks. Now, while we're waiting for that, I just want to show you something which, if we do have anybody who's involved within SND, on the call, this is a tool that I do not know why other schools are not aware of it, and it is available free across the whole Office 365 platform at the moment. Obviously it doesn't cost anything, but it absolutely is such an essential tool. As a teacher, it can take me an hour to differentiate all my materials. Can I have a 36 size writing on yellow paper, please? Can I have, can I have 25 size writing Comic Sans, please? I'm aware that every single student has different needs. Myself, I'm dyslexic, okay, so I prefer a different style of paper. I don't know if you can see at the moment, but the paper I've written my notes on is blue. And just a really nice thing that teachers should be aware of is this immersive reader tool. So I'm going to show it to you within Teams on how to access it, because that was and then if we go to this on further calls on different webinars, I will show you how to access it on different platforms as well. But once again, these 3 little dots up here, if we click these 3 little dots, we can see that we've got something called an immersive reader. Sometimes staff are concerned because they don't know what it means. They don't press it, and this is, to me, such a fantastic tool. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, okay, it gives it to you in a different area. Now, this is bespoke to every single person who is currently doing this message themselves. Okay, so for example, what I might want to do is, bear with me, have I come off that? Okay, let me just go back to that immersive reader tool. I do apologise. I think I've accidentally. Okay, so go back to that immersive reader. Okay. Now what this does is this puts it in a different view. Now the first thing that you can do is you can play, okay, and when you play, okay, that actually reads back that message to you. So for any students who actually might not have might find it difficult to actually read the messages because of the vocabulary is not very good, okay, or they might struggle to actually access it, they can simply listen to it. And that will be something that will make their life, and as long as we are able to tell them how to access that, they can actually do that quite quickly. I do apologise, I keep on seeming to click off it, okay, with the recording. So you can simply press record. The other great thing we can do is we can go to text preferences, okay, we can go to size 48, 42, all these different text preferences. We can increase spacing, okay, we can choose the style of writings, Comic Sans, okay, background, okay, vast amount of backgrounds, okay, yellow background. Now the thing that you need to remember is now because our students have these devices across all subjects, we don't actually print off any more resources on yellow backgrounds, blue backgrounds. Students actually do it themselves, which generally means that it saves the teachers more times doing the things that they can do. As long as we empower the students to be able to do this themselves, they can actually change the documents in Microsoft Word, okay, in the browsers that we use within Teams, okay, to actually suit their own needs, okay. Other things that we might look at is these grammar options, okay. Being from Liverpool and a computer science teacher, English is not my strong point, okay, and what we've got here, okay, is we've got all the different nouns. So for example, I can simply turn it on and it shows me what the nouns are. I can simply go to, if I don't want it blue, I can click the colour that I want it to be. I can turn off my nouns, okay. I can verbs, adjectives, adverbs, okay. I can turn them on and it highlights it. I can, remember this is as a student can simply click on the labels, and once again it actually just tells them what they are. And once again, that's about enabling the students, giving them the power to take responsibility for their own learning, how for them to be able to do that rather than the teacher. And this is a free tool, okay. Every single person who's got the Office 365 platform, this is already free, available already in on your services. We're just not using it as teachers. Probably a bit more lower school, but we can turn the syllables on to help read and just show you a couple more little bits and pieces. We can click on the reading preferences. We can do our one line focus, two line focus, with the different lines of focus. We can, for example, one thing I love, okay, we can click on the text, and not saying that all images are appropriate, okay, or suited, but there isn't an image there for everyone. But if you click on that word, an image is there to represent it. Okay, and that is very good for EAL students. So students being able to understand the language, if they need to understand something, they can click on it, and there is an image to enable that dual coding to take place. And while we're talking about EAL, this is the superb thing it can do, is I can simply, once I've written that message, the student might not understand English. They, for example, might be a Bulgarian national speaker. You simply press by document, the language is now in Bulgarian. They can also press play. It repeats it back to them in their language, their native language, and once again the dual coding happens. So they click on the image, okay, it should happen, maybe not on all languages, okay, but then we can click back onto original at the top, and as you can see, okay, this is a tool that at the moment I think that all teachers need to be aware of. It's that immersive reader, that learning tools, because that is actually available across all platforms, and as a teacher that saves us as a school a large amount of time. Okay, hopefully now I'll just be able to show you what this assignment would be if Louise has been completing it.
I've tried my best.
Okay, so at the moment, if I go back onto assignments now, okay, as we can see, I can see that Louise Showcase 1 has done some work and has completed on it. I simply click on the work, and what will happen is I'll be able to see her work which she has done, okay, which is just here. I can give them feedback. Okay, and I can simply press return, which gives it back to them, and then I can go to the next student. And that's allowing me to see all students' work. Students are also able to input their own document there. So once again, I would simply say, why are we using more than one platform to do what this platform does? And it makes more sense to just use that one system where this seems to have this all at the moment. Okay, I'm just having a little look at the time. I'm thinking at this moment in time, we've kind of hit a lot of the basics. I was going to talk about the calls as well, but I think a lot of questions might have been asked, or people might be thinking of it, different questions. So I would basically open up now, because I don't know if, unfortunately, people are not allowed to write into the chat. But if
We have
anybody,
got a few in the chat.
okay, if there are any questions, please, let me know, and I will see what I can give you some information about.
Okay, so we've got one question. Do students have access to the private chat? Quite a quick and simple answer to that is no, they don't.
Yeah.
Really from a safeguarding perspective.
Yes, due to the safeguarding, we don't allow pupils to have private chat access. They are only allowed to have chat within the team, because that allows the teacher to monitor it. Obviously, anything that happens within that chat should be monitored, or should be dealt with in exactly the same way as you would do with behaviour within a normal classroom environment.
Okay, the next question. I can see you have lots of groups. How are your groups sorted in school? So I'm assuming that's making reference to having like a group team, like a whole staff team, and then perhaps the channels within it that could separate it into after school clubs and staff pages, etc.
Yes, so basically the idea of a team would be, you've got a team of people, so obviously departments within all of these ones that you can see here are my classes, but then further down here we have different teams that I'm a part of. So for example, I'm also part of Wellbeing Matters, and we've got the MLT team. We are starting to develop the way that we use this a little bit more, because we found out that too many teams can make it quite difficult to follow, and that sometimes having private channels within a team is the way to go. So we do think that we're going to look at some of these different teams that we do have, and trying to make them a little bit more flow a little bit better. So at the moment, the only people who can insert teams are myself, Paul, who you've also was at the start of the call, and the technicians, and we obviously need to make that decision whether that team needs to be added before we do that.
Okay, the next question is from Sarah, but I think we've answered that one. That came up in that one. Next one is from Michael. So you have set the task for the week as a message. However, why is it not set as an assignment? Would save my mark book from having a lot of empty assignments due to self-marking.
Okay, yes, completely. It's a great question. The reason why, as a school, not all teachers in our school were very comfortable with setting an assignment, because it's a little bit more of a difficult skill. So what I would do is I would give students the notification here, basically telling them that there is an assignment there, okay, or work there, because that's, as a school, what we decided to do, because all members of staff weren't too comfortable at that time to use the assignment tool. However, we are starting to use the assignments now. I would agree with you that the best way, and the way that I would do it, is I would set my work in an assignment like this, and I would just send it as an assignment to my class, because that would save myself a lot. It does save me a lot of time, because that is currently what I actually do at this moment in time. So I set the assignment with the works attached, and I mark it all on that worksheet.
Okay, the next one, how do you stop students from editing documents? I think we talked about that when we put them into class materials,
Okay.
making sure that when we upload the documents, they're in files and in class materials, so the pupils can't edit them. They're like a master copy. So next question, does Ribblesdale use a parent guardian link?
Ribblesdale at this moment in time, we don't have parents being able to actually access themselves using Teams. This is something that we are looking at the moment, to maybe be able to allow parents to be able to access Teams, but we're only in discussion in that at the moment. The way that we communicate to parents at this moment in time is via an app. And all of our messages and documentation that we send out go via this app. So we communicate to parents in a slightly different way by using a school app, which is called School Comms.
Okay, the next one, how do you turn off recording for students? I'm assuming you mean the camera recording. Angela, if you're on, do you just want to expand on that question briefly?
Okay, well,
it doesn't matter, we'll move.
Okay, in terms of the device, okay, we stop because all of our pupils have a device.
Sorry, Lee, she means the recording of this session.
Okay, so at the moment, now when we first set up this session, we weren't aware that we were going to have so many attendees, to be perfectly honest. So we set this up as a meeting, okay. There is another option which you can do, which we are going to do in the future, okay. So when you were to set up a meeting, what we can do, and I'm hoping you can still see my screen here, but as a meeting, we can set it up as a live event. So when we first set this up, we wanted it as a sort of a discussion. We could simply ask, people could come on, ask the questions, but we quickly realised when we realised that we had a lot of people involved or wanting to see the session, we needed to run it slightly different. So if we get large numbers in the future, we will do live event, and that means that only myself or the person who sets up that live event can record. Obviously, if you schedule a meeting, anybody in that meeting can record the session as well. So if you are doing it, a live event might be better, and it means that people won't need to record. You have the confidence that students can't do that.
Okay, the next one, could we go back to the voice message function? Are you referring to the feature that I mentioned with recording the messages for the pupils? And if you are, then that would be something that I've done in Microsoft OneNote, and I've inserted audio and I've inserted video to be able to communicate with the pupils. And I've also used a couple of different apps, Loom I've used, Microsoft Stream I've used to be able to give them that feedback, that voice messaging function there. So I hope that answers your question for that one.
Just to let you know how this works, obviously I've not set up this OneNote just because the response from people who wanted to use OneNote wasn't as much as Microsoft Teams. But when you are using OneNote, I would always advise you to download the free classroom tool, class materials, and that gives you all the options up here at the top, okay, on how to actually, all the different bits and pieces that you might need. So if you download that section, there will be an option here that allows you to be able to give feedback by simply recording your voice, and pupils can click on it and listen to it on that way. So whenever we record feedback, we do it via OneNote.
Okay, the next question. Do students get given loan Microsoft devices?
Students, yes. Okay, so for anybody who doesn't want to buy into the scheme, so we have around about, let's say around about 85% of our students who decide to buy onto the scheme, which means they get their own device which they can take home. Anybody who doesn't want to buy onto the scheme, okay, they are given a loan device where they can come in. They have to leave the device in school when they come into Ribblesdale, when they leave Ribblesdale, and they pick it up from the library in the morning. Now, obviously, due to the remote learning circumstances, we've changed that policy. We've reissued all of those devices, and all pupils are now taking them home so they are able to continue their learning at home. So that's the way that we ensured that every single one of our students had it. So yes, anyone who doesn't want to buy onto that scheme can actually or will be given a device that they can use within school.
Yeah, Carl, I hope that answers your question, Carl. Next one is from Donna. To stop pupils from recording or muting other students, you can change them to participants before the meeting starts via the meeting options. Yeah, okay. So I think that's all in terms of questions. If anybody's got any more, please pop them in there. Or next one, sorry, from Hayley. Can you export grades to Sims?
Okay, good. Very good question, actually. At this moment in time, the answer is no, you can't directly do it into Sims, which I do know that Microsoft are currently looking at something to do with how to import those grades. The thing that we can do is obviously you can import it to Excel, and then that will allow you then to turn it into an appropriate file that you can import back into Sims. But once again, it seems to be a little bit too many steps. So the one thing that we've always given to Microsoft when we are using Teams is basically Sims integration, in terms of wanting to put those grades back into Sims. And the one thing that I do know Microsoft are very good at is they're very good at making the software available to and listening to feedback and allowing us to do that. So myself, I'm hoping that is a feature that is enabled in the future.
Okay, so I think that's all for the questions. If you just want to pop back to the PowerPoint, we'll quickly go through the last.
Could I just ask a question if you don't mind?
Yes, of course.
Sorry, I can't use the chat feature. So you're sharing your screen at the moment. I'm not sure when it started whether you were sharing screen or a presentation, but I'm interested because I've tried this. When you share a presentation, and the reason I wanted to share a presentation rather than the screen is because I want to see the chat feature at the same time. Students can take control of that presentation and close it down or move it forward, move it backwards. And I was just wondering if you knew a way that you can share a presentation but sort of exclusively own it rather than somebody being able to take control of it.
Okay, so does that mean, for example, what we're doing at this moment, I'm sharing my screen. When you share your screen, pupils can edit and alter it, is that correct? Or do you mean that when you've shared a document on the post channel or the conversation channel?
No, so I'm talking about, I've just got a lesson presentation that I want to show the students on Teams. So my two options would be, I can do what you're doing now, share my screen and run the PowerPoint presentation on screen.
Yeah.
The reason I don't want to do that is because I can't see the chat window at the same time. So it looks like Louise is monitoring your chat because you can't see it. But obviously there's only one of me, so I want to, rather than share the screen, I want to share a presentation. The reason for that, because I want to see the students' questions coming in at the chat. But what I found is they like to sort of mess about and close it down and move it forward a few slides and so on.
Yeah. The one, it's quite difficult for me to show you actually at this moment, because if I stop sharing my screen, okay, obviously that turns it off for yourself. But when you click this option, there is an awful lot of different things that you can do here. And maybe I'm just trying to think that instead of sharing the PowerPoint presentation, if you share your desktop, so there's an option on the left hand side that says share desktop, and by sharing your desktop you are basically, so if I just stop sharing, and now you're not going to see the options unfortunately, but if I press on the left hand side one, that will share my desktop, and what that will do is you will be able to obviously see my desktop rather than a specific PowerPoint. Now obviously the problem with that is the students would also see what you're showing, if that makes sense. So I'm wondering whether or not that's one way you could do it, but otherwise I understand that it is quite a difficult thing, because when I'm trying to share, it's a weird concept, because I don't actually have any concept of what I've currently got hold of. I've got a PowerPoint. It seems like I'm just talking to myself, and it can be quite difficult. But maybe using that desktop sharing might give you a little bit more control, but that's the only way that I know about it, is one of those options which are available on there.
Okay,
I hope that answers your question.
Try that. Thank you.
Okay. If there is anybody else as well who would like to speak up and ask a question because the chat function isn't working, please do. No.
Can you tell me how long it took you? Sorry.
Yeah.
Could you tell me how long it took you to get to this point in your school in terms of training your staff, familiarising students and parents with the system?
Yes, of course. The thing that we need to remember, it is a journey. It's not going to happen overnight. And we started on this around about 7 years ago. And when we first started on this, the first and the most important thing that we needed to consider was the infrastructure. We needed to get the infrastructure right at the back end. Before we gave any devices out, before we gave any staff any devices, any pupils any devices, we needed to get that infrastructure right. We needed to make sure that our servers were right. We needed to make sure that the support was there in place. You know, a bit of an analogy that I use there, it's if you've got a Ferrari which looks really nice and spanking new with a Ford Fiesta 12-year-old engine inside, it's going to run like a Ford Fiesta. So the one thing that we needed to make sure is that that engine that we had at the back end running everything that we were looking at was done right, and that took about 2 years. And then once we kind of started to do this for our staff, and we then started then to then give staff a little bit more using their devices, and we then started to basically, we ran from a top down. So we made sure that SLT were comfortable with using it. Once SLT were comfortable with using it, MLT, classroom teachers, and then once classroom teachers were comfortable in using it, we started then to introduce it to pupils. And to get where we are at this moment, it's taken probably around about 7 years, but obviously we've made mistakes. You know, we're not saying that we are fantastic in what we've done, but the most important thing is to learn from those mistakes. And at this moment in time, you know, all staff are not fantastic in using Teams, but obviously with the current circumstances, they are now all very, very comfortable. They've jumped into it very, very, you know, easy on how to do that now. And I think that we were in a situation which just enabled us to support our pupils in so many different ways. As from 9 till 11 o'clock in the morning, our pupils are basically running a standard teaching day, and the feedback that we've had from parents, and if you follow us on social media, you know, the video messages that go out from our head teacher and different forms of communication has really, you know, has really been appreciated by the whole school community. So it's a journey, but the thing that I do want to stress is you've got to start somewhere. And we as a school are a Microsoft Training Academy, and now as a demonstrator school, our role is to provide free support for any schools who want to take this on. And like I said, you know, anybody who does want to reach out and have that support, you know, we're working with the London Grid for Learning at the moment to actually help and support schools within the Northwest. We're working with the DFE to support any schools within the Northwest. And then obviously we've got our Microsoft training, so we are very, very comfortable in doing that. And if this is something that you are interested in and would like that support, I would redirect you to the Demonstrator School website, and please put in your information in there. And that's something that us as a school would really like to do. I think there was and I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there any others? I believe somebody else.
Yeah, thanks, Lee. Just wanted to ask about your scheme for lending out and providing students with laptops.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, so the scheme that we have is basically we have a parent donation scheme. So the laptop costs around about, this year I think it costs around about £460. Now the first thing I want to stress is, as a school, we get absolutely no extra money for any technology or any devices. Okay, we've basically, I know that a lot of people say, well, how have you managed to run this type of scheme? All we've done is used funds in a different way. We save money from printing, we save money from notifications, we save money in so many different ways that has allowed us to run this scheme. So what we actually do is we have a parental donation scheme, which is around about £460. £60 for the device that parents buy into. This allows them to have the computer, the device, okay, a Windows 10 device with a stylus. So as a school, we feel it's very important to continue the writing, okay, and it's also a blended learning approach that we do. So not in every lesson do you have to use this device. It's only there and should only be used when learning is, or when it should be only used when technology should only be used when it supports the learning within school. So basically, parents can then sign up to this scheme, which is whichever value. We have it a different device every year, making sure it's the best quality that we can have, and parents have a variety of different methods to pay. So they can pay it all in one go, they can pay it over 1, 2, 3 years. But the thing that parents really do like and value about the scheme is that the device itself is all set up with all the software on there that they will actually need. It has the safeguarding things running in the background to ensure, with a conversation with the parents, which websites they do want to be able to allow them to get on. Now, when they're in school, these websites, we have a lot more strict policy, and when they go home, that policy is relaxed on our devices, which gives them more access to the likes of Netflix or YouTube. So they, obviously this device that they've got, that they purchase, is the pupil's device. It's not the school's device. Now, any pupil who doesn't sign up to that device, we have a loan scheme. So we have another device which we buy as a school, which is left in the library, and pupils pick up every morning, and they use throughout the day. And as they leave, they put this device back. Just to give you an idea, for pupils who are on the DP or PP, however it's referred to as your schools, we heavily subsidise that with PP money and PP funds to ensure that they also have access to this device. This is something, obviously, that on our live events where we actually do it within school, we do go through an awful lot more on how we actually do this as a school. And if this is of interest, we can actually also put this on one of our webinars as well. I think today was more about wanting to get to access with remote learning. So I hope that answers your question quite briefly, but we do have a variety of different schemes. It is parents that buy this. It's fully insured, the device, so if it's broken, if it's dropped, if it's smashed, it's all fully insured, and it all comes under that cost that parents are aware of and that they sign up to. One thing that I would say is, as a school, we are now oversubscribed, which wasn't the case before we went into a one-to-one school. I'm not saying that is the only reason why we are oversubscribed, but I'm saying that, I would like to think that it had a little bit of a reason. That as a school, we've done a little bit of research to think that most parents want to start thinking about buying a laptop for their son or their daughter at the age of 11 or 12. As a school, we just give it to them in a different way. We inform them at primary school that this is what our school is about, and we found that a lot of parents didn't buy a personal device at home because they knew that when they come to our school, we were able to provide them with that device with the right knowledge and the security, and a massive thing, which was the insurance side of it as well. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Thanks, Lee.
Okay, so I will just mention a couple of the next steps that we would encourage you to try and take moving forward with learning journeys. The first one is to review the procedures that you've got in place with a specific focus on keeping students safe whilst remote learning. So that looks into several things that Lee and I have spoken about today, in terms of the forms, checking in with form groups, making sure pupils are accessing work and engaging, and also ending calls for all pupils, making sure that no one's still in a meeting once you have left. And again, that's done with the little 3 dots at the bottom when you're in your chat, and it will give the option to end the meeting for everybody. The second one is to direct your staff within your organisation to the Microsoft Educator Centre to get support with Office 365 apps and teaching with technology pedagogy. There are so many courses on there that can help you and people within your organisation to develop your skills, whether it's OneNote, whether it's Immersive Reader, Learning Tools, SEND, a variety of different platforms that you can get to grips with on there. And then the third thing that we'd like you to take away from this session is to visit the Demonstrator School website to register for EdTech support from a specialist school, if that is something that you are seeking. I know Lee's mentioned that a couple of times throughout. So what I would like to is considered as part of training as well for you guys and also for us. So if you are part of the Microsoft Educator Centre already, fantastic. All you need to do is just head onto there, clicking your icon on the top right hand corner and click Redeem Achievement Code, and the achievement code is here, T-LP. And you just pop that in there, and that will give you so many points and allow you to become a member of that community and give you that MIE badge. So if you could all do that, that would be great. If you want to take a picture of the screen, the recording of this will be available as well. I'll be able to share with you.
Okay, just to sort of end, what I will do is I realise there's quite a large recording. I will split up, I will edit the recording and I'll put it into different sections. So I will take the live demonstration out and I'll provide that as a separate snippet of recording for anybody. So at least if you do want to refer back to that live demonstration, you've got that there. And I'll also include this Microsoft Innovative Educator screen on every single snippet that we do. We will send out an email asking for some feedback. Like I said, it's probably been a little bit of a learning curve for myself as well as Louise, but we would certainly like to get that feedback from you so we can make these events more useful for our staff, for all schools within the future, and just to make sure that we're actually providing the content that you as educators would like. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.